Nitro with the nice flow. Y'all acting like y'all don't know. Stop acting like y'all don't know.
Joe Campbell.
Who the future? We the future. Who the future? Us. Who the future? We the future. Who the future? Us. Causing chaos in the back of the bus. Get your hands up. We gon' show you how we buzz. Yeah. The future.
The future is now as we continue domination. Welcome to CFB Knowledge for College Week 2. It is September 9, 2022, a suddenly not so casual one at that. It is the Shark. I am your host. This is my co-host, The Gun. What's going on tonight, brother?
Man, feeling beautiful, feeling great. Now, I want to tell the people this. Don't overreact to what happened in week 1. This is overreaction week. This is where you fade the overreaction. We're going to be playing the teams today that probably didn't do so well in week 1, but are going to do well in week 2. I'm ramped up for college football week 2. Let's go.
Straight business, 12 noon, Atlanta, Georgia. I dropped a play earlier this week. I appreciate you guys watching. The Gun has alignment. Georgia State hosting UNC. Talk to me, Gun.
He absolutely sniped my best bet. I won't say sniped. I think it was just pure alignment. But let me tell you why. UNC is coming off a dramatic win last week off App State, 63-61. They allowed 42 points in the fourth quarter to App State, minus 82 net yard average in that spot. But Georgia State is coming off a 35-14 loss to South Carolina, but the score does not tell the whole story. 2 blocked punts that ended up being touchdowns, a 14-point swing that killed the line and killed anybody that was backing Georgia State in that game. Now, UNC, they struggled defensively, especially stopping the run. They give up 6.7 yards per carry to App State, 288 yards on the ground overall. And guess what Georgia State likes to do, baby? They love to run, and I think they're going to do it well here. This is a better defense in App State, and I think this game is going to be a lot closer than people expected. And I actually, honestly, I don't mind having a little bit sprinkle on the money line on this one, but it's not going to be my play. I'm taking the 7.5. I'm taking what I call the gift and taking Georgia State at home on a revenge spot, by the way, as a minus 27 dog last year on the road and getting crushed off a Virginia Tech loss from UNC. They were ready for revenge. They ain't ready for this game, my friend. Georgia State plus 7.5 is the play.
Yes, and as I was saying, and I will repeat it here for those who did not catch the midweek broadcast, the fastest 2 minutes in college football, I should say. Georgia State plus 7.5. Jumping off that, the game last year is a very interesting template as to what's going on here. Georgia State did start the campaign last year 1-4 and finished the season 7-1, and obviously did just get hammered, but fraudulently hammered at South Carolina in the opener. But if you go back to that game last year, Sam Howell, now in the NFL, I made the comment before, channeled somewhere in between Peyton Manning and Lamar Jackson. Crazily enough, 11 carries, 104 yards, a 62-yard touchdown run, completely outlierish stuff. Sean Elliott, coach of Georgia State, not ex-NBA player for the Spurs, I might add, blasted them last year, said we have no containment, we don't seal the edge, we don't plug the seams. We basically are just an undisciplined football team. This guy coming home opener, downtown Atlanta, I believe the old Olympic Stadium they play at. This is a big-time stadium for a Sun Belt team that is ready to turn a corner. Official play here at plus 7.5. Moving forward quickly, West Point, New York. Army on the road last week did us dirty at a short figure at Coastal Carolina. They come home here and they catch a UTSA team that just had a real tight loss in week 1. Army plus 3, an official from the Gun.
I love Army in this one. Let me tell you why. Army's coming off a loss over Coastal Carolina, 38-28, minus 93 in net yards. But look who they played. They played a great Coastal Carolina team that is going to excel in the division they're in. But Army has won 6 straight home openers in their previous matchups versus UTSA. If you want to go into it a little bit further, they beat them in 2019 and they beat them in 2020. Now, here's the situation. UTSA is coming off a triple overtime loss to Houston. They are gassed. They are holding their knees. Now they're going to go jump on a plane, go to upstate New York on a beautiful campus, by the way. If you haven't been to West Point, I suggest you go. The castles are beautiful. But in this spot, Army's playing at home. They are 13-1 straight up in this spot. And you have a UTSA a little bit gassed, going on the road, a little bit deflated. Now they have to face the triple option. Come on, man. Give me Army +3 as the play.
Next play, I'm going 3:30 p.m. This is an alignment play with the gun. We are taking the Tennessee Volunteers on the road in Pittsburgh, -5.5. Again, you have to go back to last year. The two teams did meet last year in Tennessee, and this line is telling you a great story. Last year, Kenny Pickett, probably the best player ever to come through Pittsburgh at the quarterback position, leader in all statistical categories for this team. Of course, now playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, didn't move far. This guy dominated the game. 41-34 Pitt in Tennessee. Pitt -3.5. So Pitt wins on the road as a favorite by 7, and they come home and they're an underdog at +6.5. This is a bye team with Tennessee. The Volunteers fans down in Knoxville have been waiting for this for decades. This is their best team in years. And if you look at Pitt in week 1, Pitt non-cover against West Virginia in the backyard brawl. That was the first time they'd played the backyard brawl in a decade. Huge emotional high, a hook non-cover, but even deeper into the game, they could have very easily lost that game. They were down by a touchdown in the late 4th and scored 14 unanswered points inside of 3:41 in the 4th quarter to win by a touchdown. This Pitt team is due for a letdown. The line is all over Tennessee. Official play, Tennessee -5.5, 1 unit. 12 noon, we're going to Happy Valley. Penn State comes home off a real tight win at Purdue, catching Ohio. Guns picks an official.
Listen, you got Penn State coming off the road, like the Shark just said. 35-31 was the victory for Penn State. They struggled running the football, though, so that is a concern to me. And their defense gave up 426 yards of total offense to Purdue. Granted, Purdue is a strong offense in itself, but they were -20 net yards in that spot. But Ohio has a great offense as well. Versus FAU, they won 41-38. They put up 476 yards of total offense, and they held their opponent to 3.9 yards on the ground. So I don't think Penn State's going to be able to run on this team, but granted, they don't run on anybody anyways. Now you have Ohio coming last played Penn State, and this is probably just a fun stat. 2012, they actually beat them 24-14 as 6.5-point dogs. They are 25-point dogs. I'm not going to say they're winning this game, but there's also a look-ahead spot in this situation for Penn State because they have to go play Auburn next week at Auburn, where they beat them in dramatic fashion with Bo Nix and Clifford as a quarterback. This may be a tough situation where they overlook a MAC team with a great offense that can put up points and keep it close. I think this is more of a 17 to 19-point game, not a 25-point game. I don't think Ohio has the gusto to win it, but I do think they have enough to cover. So give me Ohio plus 25.5 as the play.
I like it. And I'm going back to Old Reliable. And I shouldn't be calling them Old Reliable because we've only bet them once. But the top play in week 1, we are going right back, full business, Harrisonburg, Virginia, James Madison University, official play, -37.5. And people look at this line and they say, are we really laying 37.5 points with James Madison? I highly encourage you to. If you go back to last year, they laid over 21.5 points at home 5 times, and they were 5-0 ATS in those games. This team is in a very unique environment. 2-time national champion in the FCS, recently promoted, highly pissed off. It's rare that you find a team in college sports that is pissed off every single week. James Madison fits that model. This team is going to want to prove that they're here, they're ready to stay. And as I mentioned, last year against these same opponent types, they were 5-0 ATS against these big lines. The lowest scoring margin was a 24 and a 21.5 against Elon out of, I believe, South Carolina, somewhere around there. But these spots are demolition spots waiting to happen. You guys saw what they did in week 1 against Middle Tennessee State. 37-7, came out from the get, all 4 quarters, both sides of the ball. They are going to hammer this team. Norfolk State also got smashed in week 1 in a similar position against, I believe, Marshall on a huge inflated line. This is a blowout waiting to happen. 1 unit play back in Harrisonburg, minus 37.5. Going big conference, Texas A&M comes home, App State on the road off a ridiculous 63-61. What is that? 124-point outcome in regulation, I might add, last week. Guns picks an under 54. Talk to him.
Listen, am I crazy for taking the under? Probably, but I know App State and UNC covered the total in the fourth quarter alone, but I don't really care about that because I know who they're playing. They're playing a good defense. They're playing Texas A&M, the Aggies. App State coming off that win. They put up 42 points in the fourth quarter. Texas A&M is a run-first offense. Let's just make that clear. They didn't have a good running game last week. A-Chain is ready to break out in this situation, and I think he will. As long as they control the run game, then the total's going to be absolutely fine. The App defense is abysmal. They gave up 6.1 yards per carry, so I think that is going to play into my total. Texas A&M defense, by the way, only gives up 3.7 yards rushing and has a 9.7 sack rate. So if you want to run, you ain't gonna. If you want to pass, better hold your strap because here comes the rush. Last week, they averaged UNC. They averaged 6.7 yards per carry given up to App State. So take that into account. Almost half of what the Texas A&M defense does. So this is all predicated on Texas A&M controlling the run, which they want to do, controlling the clock, bleeding it dry, and I think it's an overreact. I'm talking week 2 overreactions. This is an overreaction to a game between 2 bad defenses. And I think in this spot, you got to be looking at the under on this one. I think Texas A&M just controls the game from the get-go. Give me the under 54, and this is a 2-unit play for me.
Yeah, it's an incredibly sharp look. And we talk about this all the time. One of the biggest flaws in more recreational handicapping, and I will even say in professional handicapping, I mean, I talk to a lot of guys that do this professionally. They're not seeing the zigzag effect. And zigzag effect applies to totals just as much as it applies to win-loss and ATS win-loss. When you see a total that high and it comes back the next week, this game flow is going to be the polar opposite of what you saw last week. Sharp take there from the gun. I'm not on any totals this week, but I do like that look. My next play, 4 p.m., we are going to Texas Tech, and we are taking Texas Tech minus 3.5 against Houston. Houston is a great fade team. Houston comes in here 13-1 in their last 14 games straight up, and they come in here in a similar travel spot to what you see in our fade of North Carolina. This is a road back-to-back, with the previous game being a high-scoring, back and forth, highly competitive, outright win, but in the balance till the end of the game. And I believe that was 2 or 3 overtimes in UTSA last week. They left it all on the table. This team is teetering on the edge of a loss. And if you look at the game that was played last year in the opener, Texas Tech did hammer them 38-21 at a neutral site, Energy Stadium in Houston, Texas, where the Texans do play. But the line is telling us a story here. Houston was laying 2.5 neutral. That should be 4 at home. This should be theoretically Houston, number 25 in the country, -1 in this position. They come in at +3. It's a 4-point strength point to us, steamed up by Sharps mainly. Sharp take here. They should get there by 6-10. Texas Tech -3.5. Staying 4 o'clock, going out west. Cal Berkeley. We got Aaron Rodgers traveling to the Vikings this week talking shit, and we got Guns Picks taking UNLV talking some shit to Cal Berkeley.
I call this the perfect trend storm. When I mean the perfect trend storm is like the positive on one side and the negative on the other. And let me tell you why. UNLV is the perfect travel team, especially when they're an away dog. In the last 10 years, let's go back 10 years. Granted, this is just a regular stat. 32-18 against the spread as a road dog in the last 10 years. They were 4-2 against the spread last year. So when they go on the road, they show the F up. Now let's look at Cal on the other side of the spectrum. So terrible team at home, especially when they're a home favorite. 9-20-1 against the spread as a home dog, and 2-7 against the spread in the last 3 years. So UNLV, they played at Idaho State. They played an FCS team. Both teams played FCS teams last year. They won 52-21, but they were up 45-7 in the halftime, and they just took the foot off the gas in the second half. But they were plus 313 net yards for that game. God damn, that's dominating. Then you have Cal on the other side. They played UC Davis. UC Davis is a better team from the FCS perspective, but they were only up 10 points at halftime on this team, and then they turned it on the second half and won 34-10. Plus 28 net yards in that game, too, by the way. That is kind of basically fallen even. Cal is a bad team. You have a UNLV team that loves to play on the road. You have a Cal team that hates to play at home. And guess what? Who Cal has to play next week? My boys, ND. So they're probably looking past UNLV, scared as shit to go play ND. So I'm going to be taking the 13 points that they gave me and go UNLV plus 13, and that is a 2-unit play.
Love it. Speaking of 2-unit plays, we're going to my top play unit-wise, and the top play per my scaling on a Suddenly Not So Casual Send It Saturday, September 10th, 2022. We are taking Illinois first half -3, 1.5 units, and Illinois game -4, 1 unit. So 2.5 units of risk in this game. And what you're looking at here is great situational analysis. You have to go back to last year, first of all. Last year, Illinois went into the University of Virginia and got their ass handed to them, 42-14. The line is telling you a story. UVA was laying 10.5 points at home and absolutely hammered them. They come on the road at +4.5 at the open. That's a 15-point gap. It should be 3-5. This is telling you over 2 touchdowns worth of strength. And you look at Illinois coming in here with Brett Bielema. Go back to the opener. I had Wyoming, complete swing and a miss. Week 0, we didn't know anything. But we adjust. Now we know things. This team out of conference at home will show up, and they will show up in the first half. Last week, they went into Indiana. Indiana was on a long losing streak. It was a Big Ten opener on a Friday night, and Illinois got robbed of a victory. They caught a ball in the end zone that was called a non-touchdown, that was a touchdown, and they lost the game. So you get a team coming in here off a brutal loss, a bitter loss, an angry loss, and they catch a revenge game against a UVA team that barely covered last week at home against Richmond. So this UVA team is down this year. And one final point, when we're looking at the half-to-half split, week 1, Illinois blowout first half at home. Week 2, non-cover road. Now they come back. First half is their spot. This is proportionally weighted towards it. When the game's at 4 and the first half's at 3, they're telling you they're going to come out with the focus and anger I'm talking about. And final point, in that game last week for Virginia at home against Richmond, Virginia did come out well in the first half in their home stadium and fade down the stretch. Very frequently in college sports, that flips on the road. A team will come out far worse if they come out well in their stadium. 2.5 units worth of risk. First half -3, game -4. Next one quickly for me, 6 p.m. We're taking the UAB Blazers at Liberty. I had suggested last week Liberty would be a fade. They did not cover at a very weak University of Southern Mississippi team. Now they come home, and UAB gets what they do well, cover these type of lines on the road. Last year in the second game of the season, UAB, off a win, went into Georgia and got their ass handed to them. For anybody who doesn't know, and I'll state the most obvious thing in the world, the University of Georgia is not Liberty. missing Malik Willis, who's in the NFL. And you go back to last year, Malik Willis and the boys took a second half surge at UAB and beat them down on the road 36-12. So you get a UAB revenge game and you get a line number. UAB -3 at home, loss by 24. Come on the road. This should come towards Liberty. It's coming up to 6. They're telling you a strong UAB story here. This is a down campaign for Liberty. 1 unit, UAB -6. 4 p.m., Iowa City, Iowa. Guns picks, a side and a total.
I think Hugh Freeze might be at this strip club after that, the beating he's going to be taking from UAB. But I digress. Let me talk about Iowa State. Let me talk about Iowa in this situation. Listen, this rivalry is as tale as old as time. Iowa has basically won the last 6 straight and covered 6 straight. And the under is absolutely the most trendy thing in college football. I think it's – I don't have the stat. Oh, wait. The stat here is 15 out of the last 17 matchups that this team has faced, the under is hit. Doesn't matter where they put this total at, the under has hit. So this is a rivalry game, historic, and everybody's kind of overreacting to how Iowa played last week against an FCS school. They won 7-3, but their defense is great. And I think this rivalry would kind of pep them up, especially with Iowa State on the down skid, losing Brock Purdy, losing Breece Hall, losing a lot of their defensive players. They only brought back eight starters from last year. This team is in shambles right now. I do like Campbell as a coach. I don't think he can coach his team up enough in this rivalry here. I like Iowa, especially their defense. I think the points will come this week, and I think Freeze will emphasize that in practice. I hope he does, because I'm going to make this a 2 for play. 1.5 units each. Give me Iowa -3.5, and then give me the under 40.5 as the play.
Yeah, I mean, that's another sharp look. I mean, we go back to last week. I was commenting on somebody's post, and I forget who it was, but they had the main game, Iowa versus Delaware. And I said, wow, that's your main game. Are you kidding me? But again, that was the ultimate look-ahead spot for Iowa. You got an FCS team coming in there, and you got Iowa State at home in the following week. Obviously, hindsight 2020, Delaware was a good look last week, but you're buying low on what was really an atrocious effort. Speaking of buying low on an atrocious effort, we are going to Texas, and we're taking Texas State again, 1 unit -13.5. Last week, I had Texas State on the road at Nevada, and they got absolutely hammered. Nevada is confusing. Nevada lost some players. Nevada was coming in there in a tight window, week 0, week 1, sort of, halfway week, and they just kicked their ass. There's no way around it. But now you get the line you want. Last year, Texas State at FIU on a pick'em won in overtime, 23-17. Now they come home, and it's that same gap we're talking about. It's a 2-touchdown gap, road to home. And you look at the opponent here. Texas State is not going to repeat what they did in Nevada, a game where they just absolutely could not run the ball and had some very untimely turnovers. This total off a game that did finish at 40 in an extra frame last year is coming up to the mid-60s, which is telling you a Texas State offensive story, and it's telling you a story of an FIU team that is 1-12 straight up in their last 13 ball games and barely beat FCS Bryant in multiple overtimes in the opener. FIU is extremely down right now. Texas State is off an outlierish road effort. They play better at home. This line is all over them, and these are the type of spots we want to target. Smaller conference teams that people don't like, laying high figures where books are telling you there is separation in the game. Texas State -13.5, 1 unit. Staying course with that, again in the Sun Belt, we're taking Troy -35 against Alabama A&M. Again, people say 35 points. What are we doing here? Alabama A&M last year opened their season within the SWAC against Prairie View. And then they went on the road and got demolished by 60 points in the second game. Troy comes in here off a representative week 1, a cover at SEC, number 21 in the country, Ole Miss. They come back here. They lay this huge number. Alabama A&M just did not cover against Prairie View again, goes on the road in this position. Troy had one game at home against the SWAC last year against Southern. They beat them 55-3. They're going to hammer them. This game should hover around 42-50 in win margin. And these are the type of games where teams like Troy just literally score every single possession. And you're going to see a big, open, wide open blowout style game. One unit, Troy minus 35. Guns final play, 6 p.m. Eastern Carolina, minus 12.5, an official.
So these Carolina, you saw what happened to them last week. They played a rival. They played NC State. They lost by a missed field goal. ECU has always owned NC State. That's a brutal loss for them. But then you got ODU on the other side of the spectrum. They played a rival, too. They played Virginia Tech. And guess what? They won, charged the field. Everybody's happy, fat, and sassy off that 20-17 win. But let's check the statistics on this one. They only put up 245 yards of total offense. There was 3 turnovers. There was a bad snap on a field goal that pushed them back 52 yards. Or really killed the rushing yards because they considered that a rush. Minus 95 net yard average. So take that into account when you're looking at this team. ECU coming off a heartbreaking loss, like I said, 21-20. But they had a plus 39 net yard average in that game. So they actually won the yardage battle versus a really good NC State team from the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Now you got to look at ODU. Offense just bad. Hayden Wolf put up 40% pass completion, 0 touchdowns, 14 for 35. Yeah, let's see. Does that sound like a winning team to you? That sounds like a team that just got crushed by anybody in FBS. So you what you have is you have a team that just came off a big win, all happy, high fives, but the stats didn't really show anything. So I think this is an ODU bad team. ECU coming in there. I like Holton Akers. He's got a 61% pass completion rate. He had 57 yards rushing too, so he's mobile. 2 passing TDs in the process. So I think this team is way better, way athletic, and I think ECU is going to be one of those teams to make a strong push to win the AAC after seeing what I saw against them versus NC State. So it's minus 12.5 right now. It's a little bit public, but doesn't matter. I like the spot. Give me ECU minus 12.5 as the play.
Yeah, I like that play. My final play, we're going 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific. We're going to Tucson, Arizona, and we are buying Arizona at plus 10.5 against Mississippi State. A lot going on here. Arizona last year was absolutely terrible. Kevin Sumlin came in there and essentially ruined the program. Poor scheme, poor recruiting, poor motivation, a total disaster. Now this team has, I believe Gunn said, 34 players in the transfer portal, brand new quarterback. And you guys saw what they did last week at San Diego State. San Diego State last year hammered them at home in Arizona, and they completely flipped the tables. I think this is a revenge tour. It's a bunch of players that are rallying together under the brand of the Arizona Wildcats. I think this team is ready to go. And you look at Mississippi State, this is an absolutely brutal travel spot and a trap spot. They did just hammer Memphis last week at home, 49-23. Now they have to go to Arizona in a late night game on their body time. Again, you have to remember the Arizona kids are at a normal body time at 8 o'clock. This is an 11 o'clock kick for Eastern teams. And then next week, who do they have? They have their SEC conference opener against LSU. So blowout against Memphis, travel all the way across country, lackluster opponent, pissed off opponent against every team in the FBS. Then you got to go back in the biggest game of all 3. Huge trap, 11 p.m. This game will not end until 2:30 or 3 in the morning, I'm sure, Eastern. But we're staying the course with the sharp looks. Arizona Wildcats plus 10.5. That's the show for tonight. It is Free Friday, September 9, 2022. CFB Knowledge for College, the Shark and the Gun. Tomorrow is an opportunity to dominate. We love you guys. We respect you guys. Thanks for watching. Guns picks. Close them out with some fire words, and let's go.
Listen, like I said, overreaction week, so take that into account when making your bets. But also, if you want all my picks in baseball and everything like that, I'm wide open. We have a Slack channel called Dad Bods VIP. The link is in my bio. Just come in, say hi, and look at the plays. You can stay for the month. And just if you want a tip at the end to stay in on October 1st, we would appreciate that. Then you can stay for the next month. And also, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be doing my 10 a.m. college football show. And basically, it's just me firing away, talking to you guys. Any picks that you throw at me, I'll give you my opinion. I'll give you my insight. And that's what I'm going to do for 30 minutes for you. I'm going to give you that for absolutely free. Just check me out at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on my Twitter. Till next time, for week 3 of the Shark and the Gun, we say goodbye, good luck, and let's cash some damn tickets. Yeah!